Welcome back to the deep dive. Uh, we got a request to dig into phishing scams and how to protect ourselves from them.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are worried about this. So let's dive right in. What is phishing?
Well, phishing is basically phishing, but instead of like an email or text message, it's a phone call.
Oh, so it's like a voice phishing scam.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about tricking you into giving up sensitive information over the phone, like, your credit card numbers, your social security number, banking passwords, stuff like that.
Oh, wow. So how do they pull that off? Like, how do they convince people to just hand over that information?
Well, one of the most common tactics is impersonation. They'll pretend to be from like a trusted organization, like your bank or a government agency, even a tech support company.
Oh, so they're playing on your trust. Like, you think you're talking to someone legitimate.
Right, like, oh, this is my bank calling. I better listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, exactly.
They also often use scare tactics. They'll create a sense of urgency, like, oh, there's been suspicious activity on your account. You need to act now to prevent further damage.
So they're playing on your fear.
Exactly. Fear and anxiety, things that can really cloud your judgment. It's pretty sneaky stuff.
Yeah, that's scary. So can you give us some examples of, like, specific phishing scams? Like, how does this actually play out in a real-life situation?
Okay, so imagine you get a call from someone claiming to be from your bank's fraud department. They say, "We've detected some unusual activity on your account. Can you please confirm your recent transactions?" And they might even know a couple of your recent purchases just to sound more convincing.
Wow, that's really convincing. So how do they even get that information in the first place?
Well, it could be from data breaches
Oh, right.
or phishing emails where people unwittingly give up personal information. Sometimes they might just guess based on common spending patterns.
Okay.
But the point is, they want to sound legitimate, like they're really trying to help you.
So what happens next?
Well, once they've gained your trust, they'll ask you to confirm your account details, like your account number, your PIN, maybe even your online banking password, all under the guise of, verifying your identity and stopping the fraudulent activity.
And of course, once they have that information, they can really clean you out.
Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff.
Oh, wow. So it's not just banks, right? What are some other kinds of phishing scams?
Right. Another common one is the IRS scam, where they threaten you with arrest or legal action for unpaid taxes.
Oh, wow.
And they'll demand immediate payment through untraceable methods like gift cards or wire transfers.
Oh, that's terrifying. I could see how people would fall for that. I mean, nobody wants to mess with the IRS.
Exactly. And they prey on that fear. Then there's the tech support scams, where they convince you that your computer has a virus or a security breach. They might even claim to be from, Microsoft or Apple or a well-known antivirus company.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Uh-huh.
And they try to get you to give them remote access to your computer, right?
Exactly. And once they have access, they can steal your information or install malware.
Malware.
Yeah, it's malicious software
Right.
designed to harm your computer or steal your data.
Like what?
Oh, there's all kinds. There's keyloggers that record everything you type,
Yeah.
including passwords. And there's ransomware that locks you out of your files and demands a payment to unlock them.
Wow, that's some serious stuff. So it's not just about giving up information over the phone. It can actually affect your computer as well.
Yeah, that's right. It can have some pretty nasty consequences.
Wow. So are there any other common scams that we should be aware of?
Oh, there's a whole bunch. There's the classic prize or lottery scam where they tell you you've won a big prize, but, you have to provide personal information or pay a fee to claim it.
Oh, right. And then, of course, you never actually get the prize.
Exactly. And then there's debt collection scams where they use really aggressive and threatening language to pressure you into paying debts that you may not even owe.
Oh, wow. I can see how people would be intimidated by that. So it's amazing how many different approaches they use. Knowing all of this, what are some red flags that we can watch out for so we don't become a victim of these scams?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is unsolicited calls from numbers you don't recognize, especially if they start using threatening or urgent language.
Yeah, okay.
You should always be cautious if you get a call out of the blue, especially if they're demanding immediate action.
Right, right. So if you don't recognize the number, don't answer.
Well, you don't necessarily have to ignore every call from an unknown number, but you should definitely be wary,
Okay, yeah.
especially if they're asking for personal information.
So even if they say they're from my bank or the IRS, I shouldn't give them any information.
That's right. Legitimate organizations rarely, if ever, ask for sensitive information over the phone. If you didn't initiate the call, you shouldn't be giving out your account details or passwords or your social security number.
Got it. So what if they ask for payment? What are some red flags there?
Well, one big one is unusual payment requests.
Okay.
Like if they ask you to pay with gift cards or wire transfers or some other weird method that you wouldn't normally use,
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that.
that's a sure sign of a scam.
So it's like sending cash. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Exactly. It's untraceable. And another thing, they can actually make their phone number look like it's coming from a legitimate source.
Really?
Yeah, it's called spoofed caller ID.
So even if my caller ID says it's from my bank, it could still be a scammer.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, right? They're basically exploiting vulnerabilities in the technology that a lot of internet phone services use. There's software out there that lets them change the caller ID information.
So you can't just rely on your caller ID to know if a call is legitimate.
Nope. You got to be extra careful. Another tip is to pay attention to their behavior, like how they sound. If they seem unprofessional or they don't know much about the company they're supposed to be representing, like they're reading from a script or something.
Right. Or like they get flustered if you ask them a question that they don't know the answer to.
Exactly. Those are red flags too. And one more thing, listen to the audio quality. If it's really bad, like robotic, or there's a lot of background noise.
Yeah, like a bad connection.
Yeah, that could be a sign that they're using a cheap or unreliable phone service, which is common for scammers.
Right. Okay, so those are some good things to listen for. So we've talked about how these scams work and the red flags, but what are some things that people can actually do to protect themselves? Like, are there any tools or strategies that you recommend?
Well, the first thing I would say is be vigilant, be skeptical. Don't just blindly trust anyone who calls you. But there are also some things you can do proactively. Have you ever thought about using a call blocking app?
I've heard of them, but do those actually work?
Oh, yeah. They can be really effective.
Okay.
They basically use algorithms to identify and block known spam numbers and potential scam calls. And some of them even give you, like, real-time warnings about suspicious calls.
Oh, wow. So it's like a first line of defense.
Exactly.
Man.
They can help you screen out those bad calls before you even have to deal with them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so call blocking apps. What else?
Well, most smartphones these days have built-in features that let you block specific numbers, too. So if you get a call from a number that you know is a scam, you can just block it right then and there. And you can also register your phone number with the National Do Not Call Registry.
Oh, yeah, the do not call list.
Yeah. It's not foolproof, but it can help reduce the number of unwanted calls you get.
Right. So those are good. Are there any other things, any more like proactive steps that you can take?
Yeah, you can also look into using a virtual phone number.
A virtual phone number. What's that?
It's basically a second phone number that forwards calls to your real number, but it keeps your actual number private.
Oh, interesting.
You can use it for things like online shopping or signing up for services. That way, if a scammer gets hold of your virtual number, it doesn't actually compromise your real phone number.
Oh, that's smart. I like that.
Oh.
Okay, virtual phone numbers. So I'm just thinking, we talked about the IRS, but what if I'm genuinely worried that I might owe back taxes? What should I do?
Well, the IRS usually communicates through mail, like official letters. So if you get a call from someone claiming to be from the IRS, it's probably a scam.
Okay.
But if you want to for sure, you can always contact the IRS directly through their website or their official phone number.
So verify, verify, verify.
Exactly. Don't just take their word for it.
Good advice. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about how phishing works, the red flags to watch out for, and some practical steps that we can take to protect ourselves. It's a lot to take in.
It is. But it's important to be aware of these scams because they're becoming more and more common.
Yeah. But I think the main takeaway is that knowledge is power. The more we know about these scams, the better equipped we are to avoid them.
That's right. And remember, if you ever get a call that makes you feel uncomfortable, trust your gut and just hang up. You don't owe them anything.
Great advice. We'll be right back after a quick break to wrap up this deep dive into the world of phishing. Okay, so we're back and ready to finish up our deep dive into phishing. It's pretty incredible just how many ways these scammers try to pull one over on us.
Right. They really are getting creative.
It makes you wonder, like, what'll they come up with next?
Yeah.
But, like we've been saying, the best defense is just being aware and knowing what to look out for.
Absolutely. If something feels off, just hang up the phone.
Yeah, don't let anyone pressure you.
Don't worry about being rude. It's better to be safe than sorry, right?
Definitely. And I think one thing that's really stood out to me is how these scammers, they're so good at playing on people's emotions. Like, they know how to push our buttons.
Oh, yeah. That's their bread and butter.
They use fear and urgency and even excitement to get us to act without thinking.
Exactly. It's all about manipulation, right? Like, if you're feeling emotional, you're less likely to think critically. So they use that to their advantage.
So it's like they're playing mind games with you.
Pretty much. But that's why it's so important to stay calm. If you get a call that freaks you out, just take a breath and think it through. Don't make any rash decisions.
Okay, so the mental checklist, right? Like, is this an unsolicited call? Are they asking for my personal information? Do they want me to pay in a weird way? Does anything about the caller or the call seem off?
Yeah, exactly. Those are all big red flags. If any of those are true, then it's time to get suspicious.
And you always have the right to hang up.
Always.
You don't have to stay on the line and listen to their spiel.
Nope. You're in control, so you get to decide when the conversation is over.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's easy to feel powerless when you hear about all these scams.
Oh, definitely.
But, we've talked about a lot of practical things that people can do to protect themselves. So I'm feeling a little bit more empowered now.
Me too. And the fact that we're having this conversation is a good sign.
Yeah, that's true.
Because awareness is key, right? The more people know about these scams, the harder it is for scammers to succeed.
Exactly. So let's spread the word.
Phishing is real. It's a growing problem.
Right. And anyone with a phone is a potential target.
But there are things we can do to protect ourselves.
We don't have to be victims. So to our listeners out there, I hope you learned a lot today. And remember, if you ever have any doubts about a call, trust your gut, hang up, and verify.
And if you do happen to fall victim to a scam, please report it. It can help prevent others from falling prey to the same tactics.
That's a really good point. Reporting these scams is important, so don't be embarrassed to reach out to the authorities. All right, well, that's a wrap for our deep dive on phishing. We hope you found it helpful. Stay vigilant out there, and until next time, happy listening.